Hey everyone, on this week's Trade to Black podcast, Elon Musk announces that he wants to buy Twitter and take it private. Is this for real or is this a publicity stunt? Also, in this week's podcast, we talk about the food supply shortage that's happening all across the world. So what opportunity does this present for the plant-based industry? It's a big one. Why? We break it all down in our latest Trade to Black podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to this week's Trade to Black podcast. I'm your host, Shad Dales, and as usual, before we get into this week's podcast, all views on the podcast and the guests on this podcast are purely opinion. You should not treat any opinions expressed by us or our guests as investment advice. The views on this podcast are solely intended to be informational and are not investment advice. Joining me as usual this week, millennial entrepreneur Anthony Verrill. Anthony, great to see you. How are things?
Great to see you as well. It's good morning. Woke up, Elon's buying Twitter. All hell broke loose. It'll be on the news cycle for the next week. I'm curious to see what he's going to buy next.
Interesting news. And look who we have in the middle. Special guest, entrepreneur, and co-founder of Eat Well Group, which is a plant-based company that trades under the CSC under the ticker symbol EWG. Danny Brody.
Chad, how are you? Anthony, what's going on, guys?
Good to see you, Mr. Brody.
It has been a while. I, too, am very excited by this Elon Musk news, and I can't wait to hear what your guys' thoughts are. But, there's some exciting things going on in the world, so glad to be here.
So Elon Musk makes an offer this week to buy Twitter and to take it private. Anthony, straight at it as far as the question, is this real or is it a publicity stunt?
I think it's very real. I think the bid at 54.20, I mean, obviously it's a little bit of a ruse, like with the whole 420 thing. He's never going to let that die. But last week, Block came out that Jack Dorsey and Elon Musk were actually in Texas talking about creating energy-efficient Bitcoin mining, leveraging Block and leveraging Tesla's energy infrastructure. And it's just funny that now this week he's putting in a bid to buy Twitter. I think it's very real. I think he wants to do it. I think he wants to curate a platform for free speech. He wants to roll back a lot of the censorship and the woke politics, if you want to say it, that have infiltrated Twitter. Trump will get his Twitter back. You can guarantee that. So at least the entertainment value will be back in Twitter. But I'm all for it, and I think it's very real. I think if they don't take it, it's going to have activists circling very quickly to come pick up that social media asset.
Danny, you agree with that? And is this a slippery slope we're going down?
I do agree with it. I think it's going to be pretty interesting to see where it goes from here. But I don't think it's a publicity stunt. I do think he's the real deal here, and I'm excited to see Trump get Twitter back because, I mean, without that, we've lost a lot of the excitement in politics and global news feeds. So we'll see what happens. But I know Elon Musk is one to execute on his words, so I wouldn't be betting against him here.
Yeah,
here's a guy.
It's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy because it's almost like the narrative right now is that Elon's $100 billion richer than Bezos. And it's like, all right, Bezos buys the Washington Post. Elon's like, hold my beer. I'm going to go buy Twitter. Just a straight up gargantuan platform versus a news outlet. So, I mean, it might be a little bit of a pissing contest, but I think Elon definitely wins in the future.
Well, like Trump, Elon definitely knows how to control the market with a single tweet. So let's say he does take this private. What do you think this translates into, Danny, as far as how the market could perform, knowing a guy that will have a lot of control of a private-based company? How do you think this plays out?
Well, if he does, in fact, take it private, it's going to take some time so we can see what the trade is there. I think, like Anthony said, we're already pretty much bid either at or a little bit, 2 to 3% above or below the bid price that he put out there. But, I read the filings this morning. It's as real as you get. And if it does go private, it's going to be a pretty interesting journey. Not sure what the exit strategy is going to be there, but if he takes it private, he's going to have his own platform that he can do whatever the heck he wants with and compete with, like Anthony said, Bezos. So at the end of the day, it's an interesting ploy. I'm staying on the sidelines. I'm not touching this one with a 10-foot pole.
Oh, no.
Elon, he's gone from on the potential board of directors to buying the whole company in less than 24 hours. My favorite thing when I read the actual SEC filings this morning was he said, over the last couple of days that I've been thinking about this. So I just feel like it could be well thought out. I don't know, but as far as the filings go, it's a pretty
Isn't
quick
that a
move.
sign of the times?
Yes.
I got an idea. Let's execute it an hour later. That's the times we live in. What were you going to say, Anthony?
I hate to say it because, I mean, a lot of people will gather a lot of vitriol towards this, but I mean, it's almost as if he's buying a $40 billion toy. He's like just buying something out of sheer entertainment for himself that he could potentially make money on in the future, but I don't think he really cares about making money on it. It's more so like, hey, I own Twitter. It's private and I've got control. But he's going to have to finance it to some degree. He's not going to just sell Tesla stock at $1,000 to just buy Twitter. No one's going to really let him lend against that. So I think it's got a long way to go, but it's going to be interesting to see how it develops.
I know this is pure speculation, but getting kind of off topic. If this does happen in a domino effect, how soon do you think a guy like Donald Trump is back up and running on Twitter? Because that's going to have a huge impact with midterms obviously arriving next fall. Yeah. And a lot of industries that we've discussed, obviously with the cannabis space, even the psychedelic space to a certain point, but up and coming emerging industries very much were promised, and false promises obviously related to a lot of the Democrats and how they view this. But if Trump does come in and we see the Republicans take control of the House again, or the Senate again, excuse me, how much of an impact do you think Trump has on that leading up to it? Because it's going to be obviously front and center.
I mean, to be honest, my statement was made in a pure entertainment value. I don't think Trump's going to come back to weaponize his Twitter and use it politically. I mean, yeah, it's going to give him a voice again. But
you don't think, huh?
I mean, Trump went off the deep end at the end. I mean, he did a lot of things that a lot of people don't agree with. I think he's toxic, to be honest. I think people keep saying he's going to come back into the election. He's going to come back into the news cycle. Like, sure, I think he's going to do it to raise money and then just drop out and disappear. He's not going to be able to command any sort of office. And I don't even know if I was a Republican, if I'd want his endorsement anymore. I mean, it really is to a degree toxic. And just completely alienates a very good portion of people that could potentially support you.
Danny, you disagree with that?
No, I agree. As much entertainment as I get, I'm watching from Canada and I'm watching from where I live in the Caribbean. So I'm not a voting Republican or Democrat. It's entertainment for me. It affects trade with my countries. But at the end of the day, I think people have seen it. They've been entertained by it, but they're ready to have someone that's a little bit more professional stand in public office in that standpoint. So again, we'll see, but I wouldn't see it going forward with another election unless it's just a ploy to get something out of it. Perhaps, fund Truth Social or what might have you, but we'll see.
All right, let's focus now to crypto. A story posted on Yahoo Finance this week where best-selling author Michael Lewis talked about how cryptocurrency may come crashing down, that the longer it goes on and the more of a threat it is posing to the existing financial market. Do you agree with this sort of sentiment, Anthony, or do you think that it's just, again, a clip that he's trying to obviously gather attention?
I mean, I think the key word there is may. I mean, an asteroid may hit my house. It doesn't mean it's going to. I mean, granted, what scares me right now is the environment that we're in. When you factor in inflation, you factor in rates, you factor in multiples contracting, growth capital is getting a lot more expensive. Crypto right now is completely correlated to the NASDAQ. If there's some sort of financial crisis or there's some sort of market reckoning, I think crypto is going to crash. I mean, I think it'll rebound. I'd be buying with every dollar that I have if there's some sort of reckoning or crash in the crypto market. But I think a crash in the crypto market right now is predicated on the macro environment, not simply crypto becoming regulated out of existence or an enemy of itself. I don't think that's going to happen now.
Well, it's funny that you say that because others in the space, including Antony Trechev, who is the CEO of crypto lending Nexo, believes that Bitcoin could hit 100,000 within a year, but he is worried about the short-term prospect, is that what you said, suggesting it may fall tandem with traditional financial markets as the Federal Reserve starts to unwinding its massive stimulus program, which may in return actually cause a crash in stocks, therefore paving the way for Bitcoin to reach $100,000. Is that aggressive thinking, Danny, or do you think that's accurate?
I mean, everyone's got their own predictions on it, right? Some guys say it's going to 100,000, like you just said. Michael Lewis is saying it's going to 30,000 or under. And then, just on the weekend, I read more articles talking about the fact that it's going to replace entire banks, right? Like Jack Dorsey's predictions. So it's like any new industry, right? You're going to get people saying it's going to 1 million or 100,000 or to 10,000. At the end of the day, I think a lot of these guys are just trying to have outlandish statements so they get bigger followings, and that's kind of the interest of it. But at the same time, I go by the trends, and right now the trend is certainly shifting towards more companies taking crypto, easier ways to buy crypto, easier ways to pay with crypto. So, just as far as the trend goes, I think the trend is there that this is going to be a long-term thing. And I've probably been the closest to the crypto industry without actually buying much crypto. I mean, the only company that I ever almost did a deal with, you might recognize it. They just had a famous Netflix documentary written about it, but Quadriga back in 2015 and 16.
Yeah.
But anyway, I've stayed on the sidelines for the most part. I've bought a couple NFTs. I own some Bitcoin. I own some Ethereum, but I've mostly stayed on the sidelines. But back to your question, I think the trend is your friend on this one. Once the stock charts start turning up a little bit, that's kind of when I'd probably start to add to the positions. And then my last point here is it's the same in the stock market, right? You buy when they're crying, sell when they're yelling. Right now, everyone's crying in crypto. It's probably a better time to be buying and loading up and slowly accumulating than any other time that we've had where we've got these troughs in the market. So I'd probably say I'd be on the buy side right now if I had to pick.
Good to know. One of the main reasons why we wanted to have you on today, as I said at the top, is that you're the co-founder of a plant-based company called Eat Well Group. And I want to talk a little bit about the plant-based industry. Many companies, as I'm learning more and more, are still not profitable within the industry yet. There still remains a lot of optimism related to it. So let's maybe scale back as we start to focus on this new industry. Why do you feel there's such a lot of high interest and it's so lucrative as we look out into the future?
Great question. So why do I feel like there's high interest as we look out to the future? Well, for a couple of reasons. So for starters, if you look at the trends, we're at a $29 billion market right now for 2020. That is predicted to go to $162 billion by 2030. So that's one of the fastest cagers out there, right? So at the end of the day, you've got a market fit where you've got a very fast growing market. You've got consumer trends that are following that, right? It's going to happen some way. So the way that number is achieved is through approximately 7% of people now eating some sort of plant-based diet, whether they're vegetarian or vegan, versus 1% 15 years ago. So you've got consumer trends that are going that direction. You've got companies that are now innovating to the point where plant-based food tastes good, right? I grew up vegetarian. I was vegetarian for 18 years. Back in the 90s, when I was out with my friends, I would get McDonald's burgers without the patty in them. And that was my vegetarian experience. So literally all you had were these gross bean burgers. Now you've got companies like Beyond Meat. Yes, they only made a 15 or 14% gross margin. And yes, they lost $180 million last year, but they're focused on the food tech angle, scaling those through global distribution, and the profits are going to catch up sooner or later.
Yeah.
At least you'd expect, right? That's what the hype was about in 2019 when they came public. But at the end of the day, you've got the global trends moving and you've got the consumer trends moving, which to me is a pretty clear reason for the industry. And then the last thing I just want to point out is the population growth that we're seeing today is tremendous, right? We're going from 7 billion people today up to 10 billion by 2050. We got to feed those people somehow. It's not going to be done through, you can't feed an extra 3 billion people just through animal agriculture. You're going to have a significant, that's 70% of our food production is going to have to, or our food production is going to have to go up 70% by that time globally just to meet the population demand. So,
yeah. So do you think it's more based on it's still early? Like companies aren't necessarily doing anything wrong, because when you look at pure profitability, there's still a big challenge to that. So are companies doing stuff wrong, or are we just, very much still in the early stages of the industry, which explains that?
100% early stages of the industry, right? I think you're still in the first inning here. You've finally got companies that are making good products in like the last 5 years, right? Mm-hmm. This is the first time we've actually had good food. And I am the number one person that can say that, right? I spent more than half my life vegetarian. I've also been carnivore, and I'm back vegan now. I've never felt better. But at the end of the day, it is just getting started. I think we're just at the kind of the cusp of the hockey stick taking off here. And it's all those reasons I mentioned, right? You've got to feed all these people. You've got people switching to better for you foods that want to eat healthier and live cleaner. The average vegetarian lives 8 years longer than the average carnivore. The average vegan lives 15 years longer than the average carnivore. So, all the health risks that that red meat causes and all the benefits that plant-based provides, it's kind of all angles. So,
well, even look at some of the aisles right now in the grocery stores. There is a huge food shortage supply that you're really starting to see, and it's coming to fruition. This was talked about now for the good 6 months, but I walked into the grocery store yesterday. It's pretty alarming to see how much shortage supply there is. To your point, with regards to feeding and the growing population, what kind of impact does that have on the industry?
I think it's all bullish. And at the end of the day, like the fact that, here's some more stats for you. Russia exports 1 million tons per year of plant-based proteins, pea proteins. Ukraine exports 500,000 tons per year of pea proteins. So these are massive numbers that are just completely cut off from the rest of the world. So countries in the Middle East are scrambling. Even India is scrambling. Everyone's calling us. Everyone's calling Canada. We just signed another 3,000 metric ton order last week for our plant-based ingredient supplier. So, we didn't expect that, and I always say it's unfortunate. Obviously, it's unfortunate. Nobody wants that to happen, but it's just exposing the global risk in food insecurity that we got to figure out how to solve this. Right? It's not just the population growth. It's not just,
and it's moving fast too, right?
It's moving real fast.
The lack of efficiency for animal agriculture. It's all this stuff combined. It's literally throwing gas on it that it's just absolutely exploding right now.
So you actually brought up some things, Anthony, with regards to value in the industry, and I know you wanted to ask a couple of things related to Danny about that.
Yeah, I guess where you see most of the value coming from, from an investor perspective, like, would you be looking at companies that are producing consumer-facing products that you would see in like a Whole Foods or like a supermarket, or looking at guys such as yourself with part of your supply chain, or like Burcon that really deal with the heavy input products that are basically sector agnostic? Everyone needs them, and everyone's going to continue to buy them.
That's a great question. And I think it comes down to so for me as an investor, we run Eatwell, which is technically an investment company. So we're investing in different sectors within the plant-based foods industry. I myself am also investing in different sectors within plant-based foods. So as an investor, I think it comes down to one word, and that's diversification. And if you look at the plant-based food market, as far as CPG products go, Beyond Meat was $195 this time last year. It's now 42, up from 37.
Yeah, it's gotten
Oatly came public at 30 per share, right? It's now 4. Laird Superfoods was $60 this time last year. It's now 3. So you look at these CPG companies, they had a lot of hype coming out for the plant-based food, but they've clearly run into some supply chain issues, especially with COVID. I think a lot of that's going to get sorted out, but these companies have come back down to what I call real value, right? You've got these companies that are trading at 3 to 4 times top line. It's like the cannabis stocks, right? They're trading 1 to 2 times, even for the big ones that are profitable with 50% EBITDA margins. But you look at this industry and you see these compressed values for CPG brands. I do think that a lot of these kinks are going to get worked out from the supply chain side very soon. It just takes a quick read from Beyond Meat's recent financials to figure that one out. So I do like the CPG brands. And the reason I say diversification is because what I'm also doing is we're buying the raw ingredients. We're buying the processors, right? We bought Bell Pulses last year, which is one of the largest pulse producers in Canada. So we process the crops, we dehull the peas, we split them, and that is the raw ingredient that ends up going to Ingredion, right? They're our largest customer. We sell to Beyond Meat, we sell to Nestle, to Colgate, to General Mills, all these companies, and supply their raw ingredients. So I say diversification because I think that side of the business is so important for food security and securing the global food supply as we have these conflicts around the world, as we have a growing population, as we have environmental concerns. So for me as an investor, I think it comes down to diversification, and I want to own everything, which is why we started Eatwell, not to give myself a little plug, but that's what it is, right? We started it to be that one company that owns all of that value chain. So if CPG start flying, people get exposure that way. If agriculture picks up, which it is, it's going through the roof right now. Our phones are literally ringing off the hook. You get exposure through that. So diversification, I think, is key in plant-based investing.
You mentioned Canada, you mentioned Russia, so I would think a lot of countries are on board with this trend, and we're going to continue to see that more and more in the years to come. I'd be curious to know what some of the conversations that you hear based on the optimism related to the industry from various government officials from countries all over the world.
They're honestly, we've had the government of Canada calling us. We've had Middle East.
What's their
countries
biggest
calling
concern,
us.
and then what's the biggest concern they have right now? And then obviously, what's the feedback that you get on being the solution, if that makes sense?
Yeah, of course. The problem and the biggest concern for governments right now is feeding the people.
Yeah.
Simply put, you cannot grow the population at the speed of which we're growing. You cannot tame the environmental issues that we're seeing all around the world, and you can't do this growth sustainably with animals. So governments are calling us to secure their food supply from peas, right? If you look at the plant-based food industry, you can, per acre of land for a pulse crop, like a green pea or yellow pea or a lentil, for a pulse crop, 1 acre of land can get you 513,000 grams of protein. That same acre of land with a cow is 8,330 protein grams. Okay, so that's
Big
an
difference.
efficiency of 61 times less efficient from an animal to a pulse crop. So for governments that want to secure the future of food supply, they need to be investing in the plant-based side of things now, so that when this is even bigger of an issue, not that it's small now, it's already a huge issue as we're seeing, but they're going to be ready for that. So the problem is guaranteeing food supply, and it's mostly for, it's more so the third world countries out there that have a bigger problem with this. Our problem is that food cost goes up, right? You see it,
right?
Pork and meat costs are up 25, 30% at the grocery store. I got my wife got some salmon the other day, and it was $72 for 2 pieces. And it's like, the reason is because of everything that's going around in the world. Hyperinflation. We've got everything coming together here to cause a rising food cost. So it sucks for the North America. We just pay more for the same products. The rest of the world is actually at risk of famine. Right? There's 1 billion people that are famine or in famine around the world. Right? That's a big number, and that's only growing. So that's the problem, and the solution. Like I said, I think it's very evident that the world needs more plant-based proteins. They're easier to replicate. They're better for the environment. You can still make a lot of money doing it. And it's scalable, right? It's very, very easy to scale with that level of efficiency per acre.
Anything else you wanted to touch on, Anthony, regarding the industry?
I mean, I'm completely aligned with what Danny's saying, and I mean, especially as it stems down from the government officials. I mean, not to get ominous, but I mean, historically, people are docile and people fall in line until they're hungry. I mean, if people can't access food, that's when you're going to start to see people revolt and start to get violent. And I mean, that's really when shit hits the fan. So, I mean, as long as people stay fed and they have access to nutrition and to food, I mean, the status quo is pretty easily kept. Take that out of the equation, you're going to have a very big problem on your hands.
Interesting times, to say the least. Last thing I wanted to touch on, I know there's not a lot to talk about. It's moving slow, but we tend to every week, Danny, talk about the cannabis industry. And
Danny was actually the first person I met in the cannabis industry back in 2014.
That's one of it's one of my favorite stories. I just called Anthony and his partner and said, "This is who I am. This is what we're doing. Want to be involved?" And he said, "Hell yeah!"
Yeah,
nice. We've been pals ever since.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the rest is history.
Oh, yeah.
What's your take on the whole U.S. landscape? I know, where do we even begin? But, obviously a lot of people were pretty optimistic a year and a half ago when the Democrats took over the Senate and thought we'd be moving ahead. But it's been stalled time and time again. As I said earlier, a lot of false promises. But overall, where do you think this industry performs over the next, say, 6 to 12 months?
6 to 12 months. I mean, I think we've got some interesting legislation proposed and pseudo passed. I mean, the MORE Act is going to be the most obvious place to be, but it's just everyone's suffering from legalization fatigue. Everyone's just sick of waiting, right? We've had legalization was already almost 2018, so that's 4 years ago in Canada. So it's been this kind of you're in this purgatory state where it's pseudo legal and on the verge of some sort of federal legalization coming, but it's so slow with the system, right? So until we get, but at the same time, it can turn around very quick, right? You see these pops on HMMJ very briefly where you get a glimmer of hope of legalization and the thing jumps up 50% in 2 days just to continue that downtrend again. But I mean, we've literally been in a depressed market for 2 years. So the second something happens on a macro level, I think people are going to flood right back in. That said, the best companies out there, and I separate it to the top tiers, the top 6 out there, like your Green Thumbs and your True Leaves and your Cure Leaves. Those guys are now trading at like 2 to 3 times their top line, right? True Leaves got one of the highest EBITDA margins out there at 50%. They're probably over 50% by now. I haven't checked, but like they're crushing it. They're making so much money and nobody cares. So this is honestly the time to be buying. I would be accumulating these things left, right, and center. Just the big ones, they're lower risk, they're profitable. You know they have scale. I mean, Curaleaf just raised a ton of money with a low interest rate debt that hasn't been done yet to date. So debt's getting bigger.
Don't you laugh when you see an announcement regarding a big multi-state operator, and then you look at Tilray and it moves more than them? Like
Tilray goes up. Tilray goes up or down regardless of what the earnings report even says. No matter what, if you look at Tilray's past 4 quarters, if the earnings are shit, Tilray goes up 9%. If the earnings are awesome, Tilray still goes up 9%. It's ridiculous. And I mean, one thing that I could agree with Danny on is people have legalization fatigue, and the past 2 years of the market has sucked. But over those past 2 years, GTI keeps making more money. Trulieve keeps making more money. Cresco keeps making more money. Their margins are increasing. Legalization obviously does not really mean shit as far as the fundamentals go. Those margins will expand once we get legalization.
That's the point, though. When Canada legalized, you had a system everything just, I mean, it fell down right after legalized, but leading up to that,
it was
the date for it, companies went up to 20 times their top line. And when U.S. companies are 2 to 3 times, even if they close that gap by half, but you pick these companies that Anthony's talking about, these stocks are going to quadruple.
I'm loading up every week. I'm loading up. I've got my price points and I'm loading up every week. I mean, it's too good of an opportunity to pass up on.
Back even in like the better days, I was speaking to somebody over at the CSC, and they said average trading volume amongst the top 5 or 6 was anywhere between 25 and 30 million on a daily basis. In the event they get uplisted on the big exchanges in the U.S., they're looking at a minimum 500 million in volume per day amongst all those companies. So that's a clear indication as to like, I know, as you said in the top, we want to see Elon Musk come up with an idea, and an hour later we're looking to execute it. And I think a lot of people from their investments expect obviously the same thing. But this is definitely still a very lucrative industry. So it's long and strong. Just, again, it's the patience we like to preach, to say the least. Yeah, I mean, the trick with cannabis is don't ever forget what you're investing in. If you forget what you invested in and why you invested in it, you'll probably sell. But like I said, the fundamentals, the profitability, everything continues to march forward, whether or not the politicians in Washington can get their shit together or not. And it's not gonna roll back. You're not going to see cannabis become illegal or states start to contract. States are expanding. New York, New Jersey, they're all coming online. Those are going to be cash cows. Like, the market is marching forward. All right, gents, this has been good. But before we let you go, the NBA playoffs about to kick off this weekend. I need to know who you got to win it all. Who do you think? You're not going with the Heat, are you? Of course. To win the championship? Yes, the Heat. Seriously. Who else? Miami. Who else would I pick? They're the number 1 team in the East. They're the deepest team in the playoffs. Okay, Phoenix. I'll say it right now. Phoenix is going to be the Gonzaga of the NBA playoffs. Everybody's got Phoenix going to the finals. Everyone's got Phoenix winning the finals. They're going to get bounced in like the second round of the conference finals. Watch. Danny, you follow in basketball at all?
I'm going with Burger Bets, man. I got to go with whatever he's going with. That guy is on a winning streak. But in all seriousness, although that is serious, you know, I spent a lot of years of my life in Toronto, so I'm going with the Raptors. Going with the Raptors. Interesting. Shaquille O'Neal thinks the Sixers are going to sweep them. One thing's for sure, your home team, Blue Jays, they're a World Series pick right now. They look real good. Dude. That is hot. True. That is true. Vladdy Jr. knocked out 3 home runs in a game with a
gash, obviously, on one of his fingers, but that kid is unreal.
I
Only
love
22.
I love the Jays. I'm actually looking forward to the next time I go to Toronto to go to one of the games.
Just need a new stadium.
See Vladdy
need
and
a new
Bichette.
stadium.
Yeah, but you guys ride.
Ancient, but
You guys ride for those games. Anytime I'm ever in Toronto and there's a Blue Jays game, the streets are full of people everywhere, decked out in Blue Jays gear, all around downtown Toronto.
I love it.
Yeah.
We got a good sports. We got a good sports mantra here, right? People love the games, love Blue Jays, love Raptors. So
very
fun
cool
city.
what Toronto did. I was at the game last Sunday when Kyle Lowry came back from the Heat, but job well done on behalf of Toronto. It was very good tribute to obviously Kyle, but I still say he comes back to Toronto before his career's over. No?
If they win a championship this year, he's staying in Miami. He's not going to leave.
Yeah, I think he'll play out his contract in Miami.
Oh, and then come back and like retire his number and like do like a 1 week contract or something. Yeah, I could see that.
No, not even 1 week. I'm thinking a full year. He'll still play with Toronto.
Okay,
league minimum.
You know what I think could? You know what I think could happen, and I actually hope this happens. LeBron goes to Cleveland.
That is very much going. Well, it all depends on where his son's going to go, right?
Yeah, but watch.
Yeah.
If LeBron goes back to Cleveland, that team is the favorite to win the title. That team is really good, really young, and really athletic. And you put LeBron in there, forget about it. As long as they stay healthy.
Danny, it's been a pleasure. Stay warm where you are,
Anthony,
brother. And
thank you guys.
Good to check in.
Yep.
And appreciate your time. All right, we'll see you guys next week. Anthony, take care.
Thanks for having me, guys. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you giving this video a thumbs up. We also value your feedback, so leave a comment below. And if you like what we do, then share this video on your socials. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and tap on that bell to receive notifications for all future videos that we post. Thanks for watching.